I wish I could send you some memes. What the heck are you doing?
Bro, this burrito is fire.
That's not a
It tastes nothing like Chipotle,
That's because
but it's still amazing.
that's not a burrito, dude. It's a Korean.
Oh, it's sushi? Why didn't you just say so?
No, it's
You
not.
should have cut it up, though, to avoid the confusion, you know? I feel like you just left it uncut on purpose for me to go eat like this.
It's called gimbap.
Who? Dude, you got a girlfriend? Didn't think so.
If you've never had kimbap, it's basically a cross-section of Korean flavors, just lots of different elements rolled up into a bite-sized piece of Korean cuisine. I've made sushi before, but I had to pay respect to Korea's version of the seaweed rice roll. It's kind of fun if you've never done it before. Let's get into it. I'll take you through everything I added to my kimbap, but keep in mind that this is very customizable and you can put basically whatever you want inside. But starting with the most important ingredient, which is the rice, I'm using short grain or sushi rice, which is really important for an application like this. If you use long grain, it won't stick together as well, so the roll won't hold up as well. That being said, whatever brand this isn't that great. I usually buy mine online, but I didn't have time for it to come in, so I just bought this. I have about 250 grams or 1 1/3 cups. The important first step is to rinse this several times to get most of the starch off. I go through 3 iterations of soaking this in water and then using my hand to agitate it to get the starch off. After a few seconds, the water is really cloudy, so I pour that off and do it again. After 3 rounds of that, the water is pretty clear, so we can start cooking. I just pop that into my rice cooker and it makes it perfect every time. Once it's done, I don't open it up until I'm ready to use it. I just leave it on the warm setting. But when I am ready to use it, this is how to season it. It's really easy. I just do it inside of the rice cooker. I add 1 teaspoon of salt and 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. It's quite a different flavor profile than the salt, sugar, and rice vinegar you would do for sushi, but this is good in its own right and it's what makes gimbap what it is. Now onto the fillings. I'll start with my protein, and people use anything from spam to bulgogi meat, tuna, or even tofu. I asked the owner of my Korean market what he would do. He showed me these Japanese sausages. I think they're a type of fish sausage. So I went with that. I just cut one of them up into thin strips so they would fit in the roll. I've got a tiny bit of oil in a medium pan over medium heat, just laying the strips out across, which this should have been done way neater. You should lay them out in a line so they don't overlap like this. But after a couple minutes, when they release from the pan, just flip them around to get a good sear all around. Into that same pan, I'm going to add a little bit more oil and add 2 of these fish cakes. I just love the flavor of Korean fish cakes, so I try to put them in anything possible. I just give those a minute or 2 per side just to get a nice sear and char on the outside. And then I season with about 2 teaspoons of soy sauce, 1 teaspoon of mirin, and about a tablespoon of oyster sauce. Try to get that evenly coated, and this will be a really punchy flavor to add inside the kimbap. I am slicing that down into more sizable strips for the roll. That'll be a theme for about everything that's added to this roll. I've got 2 eggs that I'm going to beat with a little bit of salt. That goes into a non-stick pan with a little bit of oil, and I just try to make sure it's in an even layer. You could use an even bigger pan for this, and it would be a little thinner. And to help cook the top, I'm going to cover this and let it steam while the bottom cooks. This sits on low heat for about 5 minutes, and then you can flip it to get a little bit of browning on the other side as well. At that point, I just remove it and then cut this into thin strips. Then I have a 10-ounce bag of spinach. This fits better in the roll if it's that long Korean spinach that you can find at your Korean market, but this small spinach works fine too if it's all you can find. I'll throw that into some boiling water for 30 seconds to blanch it. You can remove that into some ice water to stop the cooking. Then squeeze out as much water as possible. Really take your time to take out as much water as you can. I'm seasoning this with about a half teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of sesame oil, and then some sesame seeds. Then I'm using some leftover carrots from last week's bibimbap video. I just julienned one of these thick boy carrots. I salted it and let it sit for about 10 minutes and poured off the excess moisture. Then I stir-fried that in some oil for about a minute just to soften it up a bit and get some browning on it. Easy carrots for a salad or any application like gimbap. Lastly, you should be able to buy these packs at any Asian market. It's specifically made for kimbap. It has some sliced burdock root and danmuji, which is pickled radish. I wouldn't make these myself if I couldn't buy them like this. Okay, for assembly, we're going to need one of these bamboo mats to make it easier. I have it linked below. And then you can buy these sheets of gim or nori. Again, specifically made for kimbap. And for sushi, you would cut these in half to make smaller rolls. These are kept whole, which makes it a little easier to roll in my opinion. You're going to have a rough and shiny side. You're going to want to place the shiny side down because the rough side will stick to the rice better. And you want your seasoned rice to be close to room temperature. Just a little bit warm is okay. If it's too hot, it'll kind of melt the seaweed and make it too flimsy to roll up. I start by wetting my fingers in a bowl of water so the rice doesn't stick. I take about a cup and spread it evenly over the kim. Try to get all the way to the corners as best you can. I'm leaving about a 2-inch margin on top, which will help with sealing the roll. Alright, but once it's even, we can start to add our toppings. Doesn't really matter what order you add these in, just try to keep them in the middle of the rice. You should be able to stack this pretty high because once again, we're using a whole sheet of seaweed instead of a half. So if you're used to making sushi, you don't have to be as conservative. I'm adding like 2 strips of everything that was long and strippy, and just a handful of spinach that's getting spread across, and the same with the carrots. And now to roll, I'm taking my forefingers and holding the ingredients in place, and my thumbs will take the bamboo mat and start to roll it over. You're trying to get this to where the end of the seaweed on the bottom will touch the end of the rice on the seaweed on top. Once the seaweed touches itself, it'll stick. At that point, I clamp the bamboo mat down over it and press it in to really seal it. You're trying to shape this and keep it circular as well. Then I incrementally roll it towards the end and just seal it the same way in a couple of places. Then finally, when you're at the end, just give it one final seal. You can even take it out of the mat and kind of clamp it in your fists. But that's it. It's really simple. We'll go through it one more time from a different angle. Ingredients go down and I hold them in place with my fingers. Slowly pick up the back of the seaweed and roll it over the top until it touches itself on the other side. Clamp down for the initial seal and then just get a couple more seals along the way. It's really easy once you get the hang of it, even easier than sushi in my opinion because the kim is longer. And once you have all your kimbap rolled up, the last step is to brush on some sesame oil. This imparts a little bit more flavor to them, but it also slicks up the knife as it cuts through, which is really important because that rice is sticky. So it's really important to have a sharp knife. I start by making a gentle slice down the middle, trying not to crush the roll. Then I use a damp paper towel to wipe off the knife between cuts. That rice will stick to it and make it harder to cut each additional cut if you don't wipe it. So I just cut one more half on each side, and then those pieces get cut in half to make 8 total pieces. These are traditionally served face up, sitting next to each other like this. You don't really need any additional flavorings because there's enough flavor inside of the roll if you did it right. I just love the beautiful, colorful cross-section of all the different stuff we added inside. You can eat these right away, but these are typically a picnic snack in Korea, so they're easily stored in the fridge and eaten later. I'll show you the leftovers in a minute, but first let's get to the taste test.
I'll never not be excited about this. Obviously another one of Korea's most popular foods and one of my favorites, although this is something I haven't had in Korea yet. And if you saw my bibimbap video last week, then you know I'm in Korea right now, so hopefully I got to enjoy this by this point. But let's go ahead and enjoy this now. Such a pretty food. 잘 먹겠습니다. 너무 맛있다. A perfect lunch or snack food. I really enjoy how all the individual flavors are kept individual, but they're put together into a single bite. The pickly sweetness of the danmuji and the fish cakes are probably my favorite out of all this. I think the sausage has a little bit of a fish flavor, so it's kind of redundant with the fish cake, but it's still not bad. I'd probably just use Spam next time. But I'm just amazed and blessed that I can make this food at my house, not in Korea. The food and the culture and the country is so special to me. So everything's just really good right now.
And like I said, I'll show you the best way to enjoy these as leftovers. You make these into a kimbap jeon or a kimbap pancake. It's really easy. All you do is beat 1 egg and dip the kimbap pieces in it. I just add some oil over medium-low heat into a nonstick pan. Add the pieces in and let them sit for a few minutes to get a crispy bottom. Flip and repeat on the other side. After a few more minutes, you'll have a rejuvenated piece of kimbap. And this tastes even better than the originally made stuff in my opinion.
That's gonna do it for me today. Thank you all for watching, be blessed, and I'll see you next time. 여러 가지로 고마워요.